Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today I'm Bancroft, as you can see, he's being joined by Jake, and like always, Fluff.
What's going on, y'all?
What's up, beautiful people?
And today's a very interesting day. We had a ban/limited errata yada 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 drop yesterday. This is a very interesting one. We don't normally... We talk about it in our Discord, we talk about it amongst each other, but we never really felt like there was a reason to just flat out kind of go over these. And these were very interesting picks that I felt like could have been a lot different, or even changing from being a limited to changing the auto of certain things, or maybe permanents. So we'll just kind of get into it. We're going to go over the bans, limits, erratas, and then kind of give our take overall what these affect. So, starting off, first things first, Piano Reign of Terror got banned. So, they believe that card just overutilized the consistency of the deck, where, if I recall correctly, when a card's combo, you draw one from the life face up, you draw a card if correct.
Yeah, whenever you combo with a face-up battle card from your life, you get to draw a card off Piano. And then he's got an effect where if he's sent to the drop area, you can flip a card in your life face down and replay him. So he was really sticky to the board, and it was hard to deal with him, especially at being a one-drop. It was easy to just cast another one if it did finally get killed, and it just provided so much draw power to King Piccolo.
I remember when they decided to hit the symbol. I think that was in set 13.
The drum?
Drum, yeah. When they decided to hit drum, there was a lot of people that said this deck was going to remain viable until they did something about Piano. The unfortunate part about this ban list is it just absolutely kills King Piccolo. Like, their consistency goes way downhill from this point.
In my honest opinion, do you think removing the secondary auto on Piano would have been better? Like, where if it gets popped, it's popped, you can't bring it back, and they have to expend resources to bring another one out to the board? Or is it something that it just needed to go?
I talked to Jay over at Hermit Style, and he played a lot of King Piccolo, and I asked him that same question, like, pretty much after our game. We were just sitting around talking, and he was like, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's so cheap, and everything plays in that deck so cheaply, you can always just cast another one.
Yeah. I don't know what the fix would have been, like, other than, I just know that Piano is probably something that had to go if we didn't want to continue to see this deck with top representation.
Our next ban card was Marvelous Might Gogeta. That, I understand to a degree. It allowed your opponent to Xeno Gogetas, and I'm not a big Xeno Gogeta player. Fluff, you played it more than I did, and I'm not sure what Jake's experience is with it, but you could play this card initially turn 2, do all the stuff, pay another one to play the 2 1-drops, which could take a life, swing, awaken. If I recall correctly, doesn't it restand energy on awaken?
Yeah, I think you restand one, draw one.
And then you immediately play the thwarting right afterwards, and it added that extra bit of pressure early on. But I didn't see a lot of people playing Marvelous Might. Like, I knew it was in decks and it had the potential to be there, but in most matches I saw, that wasn't like a key factor to the deck itself.
I think the bigger battle cards in Black just got so much more powerful that a lot of games just ended before they cracked their Marvelous Might. Like, I've had games where this card just completely runs over you, and this card kind of completely kept, what's the other one, Martial Melee. I think people just didn't really play Martial Melee at all because this card existed. It's like, this is just better.
Marvelous Might is 100% the tempo play specifically for the Gogeta Xeno deck. And unlike SS3 Thwarting, this deck didn't see cross-play in other decks. It stayed specifically in that SS3, or it stayed in that Xeno Gogeta point. So this being the tempo play for essentially 2 energy, you get 3 swings, and you could potentially punish your opponent for using counters. I hate that this is the card that had to go, but I think that Zeno Gogeta stays a relevant threat with this card remaining, even if you do hit another card.
It looks just with these first two bans, they're curbing two really aggressive strategies here, and it looks like they're pushing for games to go a little bit longer.
Well, they say that,
but if you look at tournament representation, Gogeta Zeno and King Piccolo are two of the more representative decks that we're seeing play, and they're also taking a majority of the top spots. So people can go, oh, this deck didn't need to be hit, this deck didn't need to be hit. But the fact that they're recurrently topping the way that they were tells me that they did need something to bring them back down. Maybe it didn't need to be this much of a hit, in order to keep the deck viable. But I do, as much as I hate it, I agree with it.
More black cards, starting with the Overarm Secret Identity got hit. And their reasoning on this card, I think, was since this card has been released, it's made a staple Overarm card for decks of all colors in order to encourage more diverse Overarm strategies and improve overall player enjoyment. We decided to ban this card. That is actually very close to SS4 Bardock fighting against Fate. I think it's the exact same.
Yeah, it's the exact same reasoning, pretty much.
My thing is that every deck typically will play at least one Overarm if it's able to play an Overarm card. This just changes what the said Overarm card is to a different Overarm card that everyone's going to end up playing that one Overarm card. You just find the best one to go with, and you can go with that one. The benefit of Secret Identity was that it cleaned up tokens. So if your opponent did the blocker negates, then you can turn around and go, cool, Secret Identity, get rid of that, swing to lead, and potentially being the last hit. It was a tech option to get rid of certain negates that could be problematic, or even get rid of certain blockers, so you could go for game. Bardock, on the other hand, was a 25 double strike battle card.
Dual attack,
not double strike, sorry. It's going to be switched back to Man on a Mission, which is a double strike crit. And I feel like majority of people are going to probably play that card again now because this one's gone. And because you're seeing a card that's tacked into every deck be a target, in the sense, is Man on a Mission going to get hit down the road as well? Or because it's a 20k single strike, it's more likely to, if it's played, it may not be a problem because you could combo out of it easier. It's only getting one hit in, but it is a double strike crit.
Yeah, I think, what was I going to say? I think that they hit both of these cards to kind of make the end of games a little bit more predictable. And I think that, like we were talking about before, control decks, as much as they utilize these cards, would really benefit from these cards being hit, honestly, because they can no longer be utilized in aggressive strategies. Honestly, I think banning Secret ID, like you said, Bancroft, just makes the blocker negates that much better, because your tokens aren't going to get cleaned up, and could potentially cause problems down the road if they don't provide alternatives for token cleanup should they design an aggressive token-based strategy.
And the big thing that they both have in common is that they're both free, right? So at the end of an incredibly aggressive turn, when your opponent thinks they're safe, you just plop down one of these bad boys and wrap the game up. And everyone was running one or, if not both, of those cards in their decks. And we've seen in other TCGs, like, look at Pot of Greed from Yu-Gi-Oh! Pot of Greed is obviously extremely strong, but everyone ran Pot of Greed. There wasn't a deck that did not run Pot of Greed. So eventually Pot of Greed got hit because of that. And there's a multitude of other different cards that got hit because of that. And I think these just happen to fall into that category of how can we push future product if we don't hit these two cards now.
I mean, I feel like 90% of my decks had a Fighting Against Fate in it.
Oh, it's like, well, once you reach the point of homogenization, I guess it's time for you to look at that card and see if it's too good, if every color is playing it, which is part of what they said in their reasoning. While I'm gonna miss Fighting Against Fate and Secret ID, because I really liked that element that it added to the game. I think that it's going to be a lot easier to play control decks now.
Yeah.
Because I think in the past, Jake, you've used Fighting Against Fate early on just to get rid of particular board presence.
Oh yeah, I did that a lot in my Golden Frieza deck, where you have so many cards in your drop area anyway. You just play multiple copies of Fighting Against Fate and use it to remove battle cards for free in the middle of the game.
So those were the 4 cards that were banned. We're gonna move over to the limit ones, and we got another one from the King Piccolo. They limited Piccolo Jr., Descendant of the King. It's a very strong red unison. It costs only 2 to play. It has the +1 to draw 1. -2, choose one of your 3 drop cards and it negs your opponent's board. What was the kicker to this card was its auto. Whenever your opponent activates a counter, you can pop a 15k or less battle card in their field. And initially, that was problematic. Like, a lot of negates that did play a battle card or were battle cards on play were gone. And especially if you play the blocker negates, those tokens are gone as well. I truly believe, I could be wrong, let me know in the comments, this could have just been limited on the auto, once per turn. That way, you're not risking, as someone who's trying to defend yourself against a massive attack, well, if I just negate this blocker by taking a life, I'm going to lose that blocker anyways, and it's almost a waste of a negate. But in this instance, you can negate with a regular card first, and then turn around and negate with a blocker one, and be able to block with that, because the auto's already procced. Because I don't think it was a, like, if you make it like kind of like poutine, where it's like, once per turn, when your opponent does this, you choose one of these. It's not an option. Like, it goes off right then and there.
Yeah, you have to do it, yeah.
And I feel like that could have made this card better.
I don't even know if that is the problem with this card. The inherent +1 draw might actually be the problem in this card. Because if you look at how good that +1 draw one is, no other red unison in the game, to my knowledge, on +1 draws.
And especially at 2-drop, you just get it so early on. And like Bancroft said, it's choking out your opponent from playing battle cards on your turn, like the Robotic Riposte or the Yamchas or anything like that. This card is just going to eat them alive, so they just kind of... You almost don't even want to cast them just to get their effect, because you don't get full value out of it.
They're just gone. They're just gone, yeah.
Yeah, so I think hitting Piano was a blow to King Piccolo, and maybe they could have survived somewhat in like a rogue deck pick, but with this limited to 1, I think it's going to be very difficult to pilot that deck with any level of like high like regional tournament success.
Very difficult.
Quick second.
And this also...
Sorry about that. Continue, Fluff.
I was just saying, it hits the King Piccolo archetype, but it also hits any other red deck. Like, I can't think of a red deck recently that doesn't run this. I mean, Universe 7 is running Piccolo Juniors. So this is a major hit all across the red spectrum. But the fact that I'm saying that, I think, illustrates how much this card probably needed to be hit if every red deck is running it.
Yeah.
I know whenever I played it, it was for the auto, though. Like, I'm like, I could just do this
how
many times as possible. That's amazing.
It's probably a combination of the two together, honestly. Like, even its -2, which is a really good effect, hardly ever got used.
Yeah, and it has so many good effects. Like, even just with undercharging, you could feasibly get the Rejuvenate off on this thing and gain a life in just about any red deck. Like, I kind of agree with this one, honestly. Like, if they had banned this card, I would probably have agreed with that too.
So our next limited card is one for Xeno Gogeta, or pretty much any black deck that played a Goku Vegeta card. SS3 Gogeta Threatening the Dark Empire. This was a card that was, if you could put it in a deck, it was in that deck, and you're good from that point on. If this card
I'm so happy to see this card get hit.
I will say, this card was a very expensive card when it came out, because it was a promo, everyone wanted it. When Mythic Boosters came out, it dropped in price, which is great. Everyone can get it. But even if they were to make this card limited to the Xeno Gogeta leader, that deck will still be going places. It'll still be topping. So limited to 1 isn't a bad thing. There are a lot of ways that it can still be recovered. Was it Son Goku Beyond All Limits?
Yep.
Fu Mission
Accomplish.
I think you can pull
Accomplish.
it. If I call it, you can pull it.
There's a Trunks that'll do it. Power Overseeing Time.
So, once you see one, there are still options for a black deck to still pull this to their hand. And yeah, no, it was oppressive in any black deck. I guess kind of similar to how the Piccolo Unison was being used in every deck as well. Anytime you play against someone who's playing a black deck, you're like, okay, cool. Is it a Gogeta deck? No, it's a Goku deck. I'm like, but do you play the engine? And that was like that
Of
tells
course.
you alone. Yeah.
And that's why I'm glad to see it gone. There were so many decks that were just basically building itself around this Gogeta Zeno package that included the 1-drops that would go into, or the 6-drops that would go into thwarting the Dark Empire. So we had like Zeno Trunks, we had Black Pan, we had another one that I'm forgetting, Goku, and even Supreme Kai of Time. I've seen people like sliding that in, and I've just got so sick of playing against this card that I'm elated to see it get limited to 1.
Oh, it's in every black deck. Hatchak, literally everything.
And I think that card is also one of the reasons why Dark Broly kind of was able to come back as well, because the 6-drop Goku and Vegeta were just 30Ks that you could just throw into your drop and then immediately overwhelm, then warp and yada yada yada, do all the fun stuff.
It played very well into that engine.
So we got a couple of erratas.
Big erratas. They're not. They're not incorrect text erratas.
Let's go over the easier one first, and that is Soul Striker. Super Saiyan God, Son Goku. On the front side, normally, if you have life is 4 or less, or you have a Bull Unit with a cost of 3 in play, you draw 2 cards, flip this card over. It has now been changed to you must have 4 life. This is my only thing about this. Yes, if you played the right deck, you could initially awaken with still 8 life and just be good. There are plenty of leaders out there where it's like, you know, like Goku, for example. You put a 2-drop unit on board, you awaken, go down to 6. I think King Vegeta was one where you go down to 5. Like, there are cards of alternate awakens which put your life down. Would this change Soul Striker if your opponent was able to say if they're still at 6 or 7 life, play the 3-drop Unison, awaken, and go down to 4 life? Would that have been just the same though? Or because of it having to get the Unison on board, then you can awaken? Like, I don't know.
That would have been really powerful.
Yeah, I think the difference with that is that those cards would have gone to your hand.
That is true.
Where in this case, it would be later in the game, but like pretty much guaranteed. I think all this changes is that Soul Striker starts playing 1-drops that can pick up life when they swing, and just tries to play the same game it always has, but awaken on 3 and then play a Unison.
Or it cuts its defensive plays early, so the decks that would, innately take Soul Striker down to 4 life by turn 3, you just let them do it. You could even potentially awaken on turn 2 at this point, depending on what decks you're playing against. And I don't know. I think this is a balanced errata. I see where people are upset by it, but it's a really balanced errata, because there's been plenty of games where I've played Soul Striker, or I've played against Soul Striker. You're at 8 life, you throw down a Unison, you awaken, and then it's like the game is won by that point, because now you just have all of your defensive capabilities turned on.
And it's no longer locked to a Unison now with 3. You can play any Unison you want now and feel okay with that, which is a little bit better on that end. As someone, when I play Soul Striker, I don't play the standard Soul Striker. I played my AOD. To me, it's kind of it hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Because resetting to energy early on is great for that chain, but like I said, you could play less defensive early on, take those hits, and then play all your defense stuff at the end game. I mean, you're playing like a normal leader would at that point.
Yeah. So I don't think this pushes Soul Striker out of the game, but it's interesting that they waited until it wasn't
Popping
like
up.
they could have done this back when it was on top and it would have made more sense. But I think they waited until it was a less popular leader before they made this change. I don't know why.
Well, the thing is, if you knock Gogeta Zeno down, you knock King Piccolo down, which are decks that are trying to win on turn 2, turn 3, then doesn't Soul Striker just take its spot back on top after that?
Maybe.
So, I mean, like I said, I do agree. Like, it makes it more balanced. And with the idea that Gogeta and Piccolo have gotten hit, if you don't think this may see more gameplay out of it. But like I said, Jake, we haven't been seeing this deck top anywhere anymore. Or not as frequently as I think it used to be like 6 out of 8 of the tops were Soul Striker.
Yeah, or like there'd be a top 16 and a quarter of it would be Soul Striker.
So, if you bought this next card either at the $140 mark when it was first on the market, or even at the $80 mark right before this announcements were played, because I was watching TCG Player after they made this post, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Android 17 most valuable player. Originally, Sparking 5, you pay a red if you go to Cursed Red Universe 7. You send this card, it drops your warp, and now your leader gains Invoker, which is just really strong. It's been changed now where it needs to be 2 red, 1 blue, and then you get Invoker added until the end of your next turn.
Ouch.
Yeah.
that slows you down.
Well, I mean, one super combo is all you need to go back into it. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, now you have to pay 3, so it's not like something you can do on turn 2 initially, or even, like, and from like turn 2 to 5 until you're ready to go off. Now it's kind of like, okay, I tap this, do this now. Do I have a super combo in my hand to restand? Do I have enough energy or an extra blue to be the restand energy?
Well, what is Invoker's Awaken? Is it restand 1, draw 3?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So they have a way to get into that extra energy potentially for free, but
I may be wrong on this, but if you give it to the unawakened side, the awaken, you lose it.
Oh,
you would lose the Invoker.
It's a keyword skill. I forgot this card gives it Invoker until the end of your next turn, so you have it during your entire turn. Because my thing is like, why can't they just make it like there is a Mechakabora Broken Seal where you can't do it the next turn, But maybe that'd be the thing. Like, you can't do it your following turn. That way you can't bleed over into your opponent's next turn. That way your opponent does have an opportunity where you don't have Invoker ready to go unless you play like the Vegeta or something else that could give you that.
Right.
I've been seeing a lot of people complaining about Sleepy Boy technique and how absolutely powerful that card is in Invoker strategies now that we have this Android 17 most valuable player. There you go. Sleepy Boy technique wasn't the problem. Like, Sleepy Boy technique is obviously a really good card, but yeah.
This card is now going for $50. It was $80 this morning before the announcement.
Yeah. I agree with Fluff. Like, time will tell how good this card still is, but it was a problem.
Yeah, this card was definitely the problem.
And it wasn't even out for long. Before,
not even maybe a format.
I don't even think this was a full format. It came out.
I don't think so either.
People saw the potential in it, and it was like, "Yo, this is really strong." Which their reasoning, they say like play patterns of this card have been more uninteractive than originally expected. You have a card for 1 energy doing this effect. I mean, we die.
Yeah, what did you think was going to happen? But I do like
Invoker is. Go on.
I was going to say, I do like in this reasoning how they did apologize for errataing a card so quickly after it was released. So,
yeah, that's The only thing that I was going to say is Invoker is originally an uninteractable skill, generally. Like, just encouraging Invoker itself, it encourages uninteractable play. So I don't know what they were expecting off of that.
And even if you're able to work around Invoker, it was a pain in the ass to work around it. Because there's just so many good cards that can either bounce, stop you from making plays. Blowing your field up, I think, was one of them. What was it? The extra card was 18 and 17 on it.
We're in this together.
Yeah. So those are the band's limited errata cards. Going to our quick secondary segment. Fluff, you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, so I thought it would be a really interesting idea. Sorry, Paladino, you'll go into this more depth than us, I'm sure. But winners and losers of the ban list. So what do you guys think what decks really lost out, and what decks do you think really walk away from this shining?
I mean, it's unfortunately obvious that KP and Gogeta, we've talked about already enough, were the targets of this deck. This ban list, because initially hitting both Piano and the Unison, though it's limited, is very destructive to that deck, because now you can play any counter cards and be just fine. Don't have to worry about any threat there. Gogeta, yes, it was topping, but this engine also was being applied to a lot of other black decks. Like, I feel like Dark Broly benefited a lot from having the Dark Empire in its list.
Yep.
With that being gone...
Yep, I'd put Dark Broly in there.
Yeah, pretty much anything that involved the Gogeta package and KP, in my opinion. So Xeno, Gogeta, KP, I'm sorry to those players.
I think because of that, I think the winners of this ban list, we can go into more specific decks, but I think at large, just mid-range and control decks have benefited a lot from these changes. More mid-range decks like King Cold and stuff can actually survive the early game and kind of do what they want to do. Trunks Vegeta, as much as you guys want to hate hearing me say that, probably benefits a lot from this ban list.
Sen Shenron benefits from this list. The deck got nothing hit, nothing affected. The deck is just as strong as it was. And two of the decks that really shut the shit down are gone now.
Yeah, it's difficult to see or difficult to tell, I guess, at this stage, literally being the next day, what people are going to pivot into going into next format. But I think a lot of these cards would have kept people from experimenting with a lot of those newer decks, because why would I try Toa if I can just play the cards I already own? So I know we already kind of talked about that a lot, but yeah.
I think another deck that we really haven't talked about as far as being a loser on the ban list, but Invoker, obviously. Invoker is definitely a loser. Invoker, you're still going to have your few really skillful players that will still probably be able to be successful with Invoker, but it definitely took a lot of power out of Invoker's hands.
Not putting it into a tier system,
especially.
Sorry, I was just say going from like an A to an E type, grading system. Invoker fell to C, where, like you said, skillful players could still play it, but that card put it back up into the A bracket, and it was just really good. I feel like it may go back down to a C plus, and in the right hands, a B for sure, when knowing when to use the 17.
Invoker has always been one of those decks that's really benefited from being piloted by a highly skillful player. And I think that Android 17 Most Valuable Player, no offense to a lot of people out there, but made the entire engine slightly more accessible to a larger player base of less skilled players.
Yeah, or players
and-
that haven't played the archetype.
or players that haven't played the archetype as extensively. But I think it going where it is now, I think it still has room to be successful. It's just going to fall into those more skilled player hands at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, I think just between like a lot of, I know our local shop does this, and I'm sure other shops are the same way, where as soon as a ban list comes out, they just go ahead and implement it. That way players can get used to not having those cards, and or I'm sure other shops just wait until it officially comes out, but we just like to go ahead and start practicing with the new ban list. That way we can just get more used to things. And I think between now and Ultimate Squad, if you are playing with this new ban list, I think control is going to be the way to go, or mid-range style. Like,
yeah.
What do you guys think?
SS4 Vegeta.
Yeah. What do you guys think the fastest deck is right now after all this? U7?
Fastest as in
I think
pressure and
aggro.
Pressure, aggro pressure.
Come on, AOD, bro.
I think right now it's U7. I think right now it's U7, but once we get Ultimate Squad, I think it's going to be spaceships.
Yeah, I think Spaceship is going to be very aggressive. But maybe U7 is a winner of this ban list as well, because the other aggressive strategies with higher kill potential have been banned out. And now, where U7 typically wants to kill on like 4 or 5, even like a little bit later in the game, they can play their pressure game more.
We've all seen the builds of Universe 7 where they weren't using the King Piccolo Unison and they were using Saiyan Scions.
Yeah.
They were crack the Saiyan Scions, play the 2 skillless, swing with those, and then be ready to kill on turn 2 or turn 3. So I could see a situation where that variant of the deck takes over competitively.
With that being said, it's kind of like I said, we don't normally do this. Just kind of getting our input out there. If you have anything you want to say in the comments, put it down there. We'll see it. We'll when I get a chance to comment, I'll reply to you. And thanks for joining us. And if it's something you guys do like, let us know as well. We'll try to make more of these type of videos. And I think that's it, guys. I think we did that's a good job.
Yeah, this isn't really something we typically do.
So, Fluff, you want to lead us out?
Sure. This isn't something that we do. This obviously wasn't scripted in any kind of way. But as always, read your cards, know your plays. Let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and fluff out. Oh, also subscribe or fuck you.